Welcome back to the Chicagolandians, a casual Chicago sports podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Cunningham, joined by my co-host, Connor Cunningham.
We're two brothers from the Chicagoland area talking about the latest and greatest in Chicago sports news.
Welcome back to another episode of the Chicagolandians. My name is Patrick Cunningham. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Connor Cunningham.
Hello.
On today's episode, we're going to make a little bit of a shorter episode recapping the past Illinois football game versus Eastern Illinois, and then also previewing the future game we have this weekend against Kansas, which
Also
should be a tough game. But before that, we're going to go over some Chicago sports news. Not a lot in the news this week, but still some things worth mentioning. Some things that honestly are not worth mentioning, but we still have to talk about. Ready to get into it, Connor?
Yeah, let's go, baby.
Okay. First big thing that I think is worth celebrating is that this week is the first week of the Bears. First official game of our season. We are playing the Titans this Sunday, I believe, right? Sunday, right?
Yes.
Going to be a fantastic opportunity to put to rest all of the haters, all of the doubters, all of the Robert Griffins, the Chase Daniels, the
Dan Orlovskis.
Of the Bears.
Merrill Hodge, all of them.
Yep. You think we forget your names, but we remember all of you. We remember everything you said.
I kind of got this list pulled up right here. I put it on my mirror to look at every day, yeah.
Certainly a Sunday noon game is not the dramatic opener to a Bears season that I feel we deserve as a team that has the most exciting quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah, we should be playing on Thursday. We should be opening the season.
Yeah, I think our next week game against the Texans, I believe, that would have been a more exciting game to open up with, but still very exciting. The Titans, I think, are a pretty mid-level team this year. They got quarterback Will Levis, they got Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tony Pollard. You got a decent offense. I think the Bears are going to come out with this win, though. How about you, Connor?
Yeah, I think this is an exciting time. This is the last week where we're not going to be without football until 2025. Probably the last time that we're going to be without Bears football until February, because we'll be playing deep into those playoffs there, which is exciting. For the game's predictions, I think we can win this game. I think it's a very winnable game against the Tennessee Titans. I think Will Levis is not that bad of a quarterback. He might catch more flack than he deserves, but he's a talented quarterback with great arm strength. He caught a lot of flack from his coffee consumptions and eating that banana with the peel on, but I think he can look past that and he can move past that and elevate his play. So I think they're an okay team, but I think the Bears can get the win here.
We might look at this podcast and see 10 years from now and look back and say, this is the last time the Bears were ever down. Down.
This is the last time the Bears ever didn't make the playoffs.
Yep,
Didn't win the Super
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yeah. But obviously super, super excited to see what the Bears can do week one, trying to keep expectations realistic, not trying to shoot for the moon here, but I'm expecting this is the start of something great here. On a slightly less exciting note, we have the Chicago White Sox set the franchise record for number of losses with 107 losses in a single season.
The whiplash there. My neck hurts from such a quick shift there.
Yeah. For those of you wondering, the White Sox are, in fact, eliminated from playoff contention, racking up 107 losses with still September to play baseball. That'll do it for you. And
we're actually up to 108 losses.
108 now at time of this recording, but not much is going right with the White Sox franchise. I think this whole season is just a scratch. Throw it in the dumpster, throw away the dumpster, then throw away the thing you threw the dumpster in, and then just keep going a couple layers down, because this was a absolute atrocious season. But at least we're historic this year. We'll be in the record books, baby.
Jerry, sell the team.
Yeah.
Jerry, sell the team.
That's about all I have to say about this.
They don't deserve more of our time. I will say, listeners, if you're interested in some funny content. I believe our second baseman or our shortstop, Sosa. If you look up his defensive highlights, he has some, Lenil. I think it's Lenil Sosa. Some of the worst defensive highlights I've ever seen from watching baseball. So you should, it's probably a 2-minute video. You should give it a watch. He had a couple, throw from, you do infield warm-ups. You end the warm-ups with the catcher doing a throw to second. And Lenil was not paying attention. And it just hit him in the head, which was so funny. It just doinked off his head. But yeah, we stink. But you could go watch that.
On the other side of the Chicago city, we have the Chicago Cubs had a red hot August. They finished August 18-8 and currently are on a 7-game win streak. Now, we have not taken the time to actually make an episode on the Chicago Cubs, mostly because Connor and I are not Cubs fans. We're sad, depressed White Sox fans, but some of our roommates are big Cubs fans, so we might make an episode soon, talk about the Cubs, talk about the differences between the White Sox and Cubs and why they're a team
differences.
Why they're a team that can be bad and still have sellout crowds, and why we suck and nobody wants to come to our games.
Well, they have 41 less losses than us. I think that helps them sell tickets, but...
Well, yeah, but then even when they were bad before they won the World Series, they would still have people show up to the games.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
There's something different there. The last piece of news, we have the Bears have announced their 8 captains for the season. And among the top of the list for those captains, we have number 18, Bear Claw, Caleb Williams. Which, it seems pretty obvious that you'd have your starting quarterback needs to be a captain. I don't know if there's much news there, obviously. But among the other captains, we have Mercedes Lewis, who is 40 years old. So I'm sure he brings some great veteran sage wisdom to the locker room. We also have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jalen Johnson, and Kevin Byard. Connor, do you have any thoughts on the captain selections? Don't see a bad name on there.
No, I don't see a bad name on that either. Fun stat to throw out. Mercedes Lewis is the same age as Luke Getsy, which I think is funny to point out. But Mercedes Lewis has been around for quite a long time. But no, I think these are all pretty obvious picks. I think Lewis is one of the oldest players on the team. And yeah, you're right. Sage wisdom. It must be a tough turning point in your career when you're no longer providing talent on the field, but instead you become the warlock kind of wisdom guy by default just because you're old. But I think he still provides value to the team. The other 7 guys here all make sense. Kevin Byard's the newest player. Him and Williams are some of the newest players to receive the captain mark, but I think that makes sense. Byard's an experienced player too. No issues here. Let's ride.
Yeah, excited to see that C on Caleb's jersey come Sunday.
Well, do you think they're going to do the Colorado thing with like dogs, D and L for dogs and leaders, or you think?
If there was one team that would do that, I could see Flus being into that, being into something with all of his nicknames. So it's dogs and winners, or dogs and what?
So there's leaders, which are the captains. Then there's the dogs, which I believe that's
just
everybody.
Everyone else.
Well, actually, I'm not sure. But I know there's L's and D's instead of captains.
So I wonder if that will start kind of open up the jersey game to the rest of the alphabet. We might have some boys, champions, dogs, ferocious, gamers,
having a bad season, yeah.
Trash. You get marked with a kind big old T
thing, yeah.
All right, Connor. You ready to go on?
Yeah, let's ride.
So, for the uninitiated, Connor and I are currently seniors at the University of Illinois. We have loved our time here so far, despite studying abroad last semester. We are very, very excited to be back here. And last Thursday, we took the time out of our day on a very hot Thursday, very humid Thursday. Yeah, super swamped with syllabus week to watch Eastern Illinois face off against the Fighting Illini.
With the Panthers.
Do you have any thoughts on Eastern Illinois? I'll say, the only thing I really know about Eastern Illinois is, for one, pretty small school, but then also school for track athletes. I think we send a lot of athletes there. I know Michael Atkins, if you're listening here,
Shout out
Wheaton South runner who went on to run cross country at Eastern Illinois. Brandon Battle, if he's listening to this podcast, he committed to Eastern Illinois and then did really good in state. my senior year and then decommitted to go to Arkansas. Eastern Illinois is a pretty good track program, but football, as we'll come to find out, not necessarily their strong suit.
No, definitely not their strong suit. No opinions on Eastern besides that's where you had state senior year, Pat, right?
Yes. They had a blue track, which is cool.
Very cool. It was fun my senior year. I wasn't running in state, but I went down and watched Pat run at state. That was fun. I will say, just from a high level, it seems like the program, from a football perspective, needs somewhat of a vibe shift. Jerseys just were not popping to me.
Holy cow.
Maybe they need a rebranding. Maybe Panthers just isn't really what's going on. I can't think of too many great Panthers schools or Panthers teams that I'm just in love with. So maybe they need a whole logo rebranding or something. But, concerned overall. You just see them walk out on the field and you can just tell they're not excited to be there. They're just uninspired to be there, right? I feel like usually when you get a team that comes on, sure, they're 29-point dogs. They're in the belly of the beast, and they're into it. They like being hated. And you can just tell Eastern they're ready to just roll over and just let Luke Allmeyer and Pat Bryant do whatever they want.
I mean, the first couple drives was pretty close, but then once their quarterback started throwing some picks, turning the ball over, all hope started to leave their system. But end of the game, Illinois ended up winning 45-0. Illinois totaled 488 total yards of offense. That was in comparison to Eastern Illinois having 196 total yards of offense, including 49 rushing yards. So these demonstrated a stout run defense and then let up 147 passing yards. We also generated 4 turnovers, including Miles Scott, one of our defensive backs, generating 2 turnovers.
He should have a D on his chest.
Yeah.
Because he's a dog. Yeah.
Dog. 1 forced fumble and 1 INT. And something else to note, we had apparently 44,000 fans in attendance, and you could feel it. I mean, I'm sure of those 44,000, many of them left at least by halftime. But you could definitely feel the energy. For a Thursday night game against Eastern Illinois, that hot out, I was surprised by the turnout. And getting
say it. Just say it, yeah.
Getting into the stadium was an absolute nightmare. So I bought off of SeatGeek $1 tickets for not the student section, but I still, as a student, thought that I could maybe try to get into the student section despite not having a student section ticket and just being a student. And once I find my way into the stadium and I turn my gaze to the staircase to get into the student section, it is pandemonium in there. Holy cow. So, Illinois has 50,000, 60,000 kids there. So you'd think their system, after being a program that's been around for maybe 100 years to getting into the stadium, you'd think they'd have a pretty good idea of how to efficiently move people into the student section. Sure. I'm not kidding you. They had one guy holding down the entire staircase, handing out wristbands to each person before they could get up to the student section. And the look on this guy's face. This was a man that was seeing end times. This was a man that was seeing
ghosts.
Seeing ghosts, seeing the apocalypse. I mean, he was pretty locked in with giving out the wristbands, but when he would take a look up and just see the endless horde of people growing in the distance,
you could see his chest kind of compress as the air left his system.
Yeah. And the order did not last very long. Pretty much, I think with about 15 minutes until kickoff, people started to get a little bit rowdy at the staircase. People started climbing up the staircase, over the ledge to get onto the staircase, just completely running past the guy, and people started charging him. And eventually, he just started handing out wristbands by the handful to anybody that would grab one instead of putting them on the wrists. It was chaos. But I think that just shows the passion, the interest, the energy that was there for the team.
It was great. When I was getting in, they were originally supposed to check your ID to make sure that you're a student and then give you a wristband so that people who aren't students aren't taking up spots in the student section. When I was walking through, there was a second person who was going to join this guy to help him out. And he just whispered under his breath, "Don't check the IDs, man. Just hand out the bracelets. There's too many of them." And he just started handing them out. And then you could tell they were just defeated. It was not unlike that episode of The Walking Dead when they're in the prison and there's just all the zombies at the fence every single day. And eventually they just charge and break retreat. They're like the walkers. But it was fun. There was a lot of energy. Yeah, and I think the game atmosphere was pretty good, at least for kickoff. It was really exciting. I think we were projected to finish 13th in the Big Ten, so not huge expectations for this Illinois roster right now. But, that's the media. We don't really care what the media is saying. We only care
Cut
about
through
the
the
people
noise.
inside this building.
Man in the
People
arena.
inside this building. The building being Champaign-Urbana area. Man in the arena right now. So I think we're ready to prove a lot of people wrong.
Heck yeah. So let's get into it. So as we said before, Illinois won 45-0. First thing I would say is our wide receiver core looked pretty strong.
Dogs.
As Connor alluded to, they should all have dogs on their jerseys. Led by senior Pat Bryant, who looked pretty dominant. Pat Bryant had 5 receptions for 63 yards and had 2 touchdowns with a longest reception of 28 yards. And his second touchdown was a sideline toe tap fading back catch.
Dog.
Last year, Pat Bryant had 560 yards, and the previous year he had about 400 receiving yards. So I think this year he's really looking to take a step up and become that wide receiver 1 for the Illini. But last year we had like an okay receiving core, but led by current NFL receiver Isaiah Williams, who had over 1,000 receiving yards and commanded most of the targets from Luke Altmaier. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamics of our receiving core change now that Isaiah Williams and Casey Washington have left the team. Interesting to see if Altmaier will spread the ball out a little bit more.
Yeah, and Pat Bryant had 7 touchdowns last year, which is a pretty decent amount of touchdowns, and he already has 2 this year. I think the record for Illinois is 10 receiving touchdowns on a season. Pat Bryant's definitely a player who could compete to be scoring 10 plus touchdowns and break that record. He should have had a 3rd touchdown too. In the second quarter, Luke Altmaier just completely missed him in the end zone. It was wide open. So he could have had 3 touchdowns in this game, but overall Pat Bryant looked pretty dominant and looked like he might be our best, or at least one of our best offensive players that we have on this team.
Absolutely. The second receiver we have in that wide receiver trio that I'm going to highlight is Zachary Franklin, who is a transfer from Ole Miss, who is currently the NCAA active leader in receiving.
Wow. Well, it's his 6th season. Okay.
Yeah, it is his 6th season. That kind of comes with the years. But previously played for UTSA, had multiple 1,000-yard seasons for UTSA, and I think was an NFL prospect, but for whatever reason has stuck around. Didn't have that productive of a season last year at Ole Miss, but is still an exciting player, a good route runner that we're excited to have. And then the last guy we'll highlight is Malik Elzy, who's a 4-star recruit sophomore out of Chicago, went to Simeon in high school and showed some great flashes as a route runner, burned the Eastern Illinois DBs a couple times on some good routes.
Play.
Yeah, he had some great plays. So we're excited to see what this receiving core can be. I saw some people say this might be the best receiving core we've had in many a years. So we're excited.
Yeah. Usually our offenses, our freshman and sophomore year, were definitely highlighted by Chase Brown and our rushing prowess. So it'd be really cool if we could start airing the ball out here, especially with this receiving core and having Luke Altmaier, who at least is supposed to be a great passing quarterback. And I think he showed flashes of being a solid passer. So it'd be exciting if we could really start airing the ball out, especially with these new teams that are entering the Big Ten. Definitely going to need to put up some points. So I think having these weapons here at the receiving core is exciting overall. Zachary Franklin, this is his 6th season, previous at UTSA. So I wonder, when he was at UTSA, he must have played Illinois when he was at UTSA, right? Like
He did, yeah.
So we saw him there. And I saw that last year he was a Blitnikoff on the watch list for preseason, which, obviously he didn't win that award. But it's exciting that a guy is at least on that stratosphere or in that zone for the Blitnikoff. That's exciting. But overall, I think this is a great receiving core that we have. Maybe we're looking at some Heisman finalists here on this list.
Absolutely. And then the next point that I think another good takeaway from the game is Luke Altmaier's performance. Luke finished the game with 214 total passing yards. Not great, but he did have 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, so limited mistakes. Per reading reports and analysis of the game, we thought we saw a little more composure maturity from Luke Altmaier's performance. But the one thing that I think is notable about the game is his ability to spread the ball around or pass to a couple more people. Altmaier completed 19 different passes to 10 different players in a single game, which is pretty good. Shows that we have a lot of pass catchers on the team, but Altmaier's not afraid to throw to other people. Like we said last year, we had NFL receiver Isaiah Williams, who last year had 82 receptions, which was 33 more than Casey Washington had.
Also NFL receiver.
Yep, also receiver for the Falcons. But last year, our top 3 pass catchers had at least 43 receptions, but our number 4 pass catcher only had 19 receptions. So you see, like, there's a big drop-off in our receptions, and Altmaier really relied on Isaiah Williams as this player that he could look to a lot, which definitely has some weaknesses when you play better defenses that can shut down a receiver. So it's nice to see this game, at least, he was able to look to more options, and we seem to have a deeper offensive roster. And then the last thing I'll highlight about our offense is our strong running game, which Connor highlighted. So we have 2 good running backs this year. We have Aiden Lawfrey and Caden Fagan. Caden Fagan, I think, was supposed to come in and be the presumed starter and will be, I think, the starter for most of the games. But for the opening snaps, Lawfrey got the start. Caden finished with 16 carries for 108 yards and also scored a touchdown. And then Lawfrey had 10 carries for 79 yards with a long run of 29 yards. Illinois offense, like we said before, is not known for its ability to throw the ball super well. So it's nice to see that we do have strong running backs and that we have a duo that are both capable and also offer a little bit of variety in their style of running, so we can kind of have a 1-2 punch that will hopefully leave defenses and eventually Kansas confused.
Yeah, I think overall, putting up 45 points against any team is very tough. Having a shutout is very tough. I just want to challenge Luke, if you're tuning in, to not settle for, look, I know you had 4 touchdowns. I know you threw for over 200. I know you got to be excited about that. But, just from a fan's perspective watching the game, I could tell that there's some uninspired football being played. I could tell that there are some times where he's dropping back. While I'm seeing the field very well up in the student section, I'm seeing the field great.
We're pointing at the guys.
I'm saying
right there.
You got 13
Boom,
right there. 13's right there.
Right there.
Luke's eyes are elsewhere.
Missing.
Eyes are already at the sideline looking for the check down. I just want to challenge him to elevate himself. So, maybe this is whiteboard material for Luke to kind of elevate his game. But I know the player that I see in Luke, I know he can be a great quarterback. I just feel like he needs to have that pulled out of him. And I think sometimes it can be frustrating watching him because he has these skills to be great. And I just want him to elevate his play style. Eastern Illinois is not a litmus test on how good your program is, but you'd rather win by 45 points than lose by 45 points against any team. So I think overall this game is what we expected, but not too bad of a result.
Yeah. The last thing that I'll highlight about our defense, I think we also showed a strong linebacker performance. One of the people that I wanted to highlight was Joe Barna, who is actually a true freshman from Wheaton North. So Connor and I, for more context, we went to Wheaton South and Wheaton North, hometown rival. So it's very, very cool to see a Wheaton North alum getting the start and actually putting up some serious minutes in the game. He played 26 snaps, got a Pro Football Focus score of 65.7, apparently the second highest of the position in the game. Obviously, it's very hard for a true freshman to make an impact this early in the season in a game, so it's great to see that he's already has the confidence to step onto the field and be a competent player. And I think hopefully in a couple of years, he'll be a pretty substantial player for the Illini.
No, for sure. Hometown kid. Super cool to see.
So that'll do it for our coverage of the Eastern Illinois game. Just in general, excited to have football back, excited to see the Illini, feel that energy in the stadium. It's always fun to watch with your friends and see you win a game. Hopefully, with this next game at Kansas, we can get out our second dub, although it will be a much more formidable opponent than this Eastern Illinois game. I'm going to kick it to Connor.
Yeah, so let's talk about this game. So Kansas currently comes in ranked number 22 in the nation. This is going to be a rematch of last year's game where we traveled on a Friday to play at their stadium, and we kind of got our bell rung by Kansas last year. Bears current edge rusher Austin Booker had a great game against us. Jalen Daniels, one of his only games that he played last year, kind of lit us up. He threw for 277 and 2. Devin Neal, their top running back and probably one of their best players on the entire roster, rushed for 120 and 1. And Daniel Highshaw also rushed for almost 100, rushed for 98 with a touchdown. So they ran all over us last game. And this is hopefully going to be a better showing from Illinois. Kansas famously does not play well on the road against big-time teams and out of conference. I believe they haven't had a win since Houston, which was a few years ago. So this would be a huge win for the program, and Kansas is definitely coming into this game as the heavy favorite to win. Currently, there are 5.5-point favorites with an over-under of 55.5 points. So this line has shifted. So it started at 6.5 for Kansas and is now shifted down to 5.5. So maybe there's some positive tides moving forward, but Kansas is definitely expected to win this game. Some of the key players that we have in this game is first and foremost Jalen Daniels, who is their quarterback and is a true dual threat quarterback that they have here. He is dynamic with his legs and can also make many fantastic throws. In his most recent game, he threw for 271 against Lindenwood. Lindenwood is not a great program, but he still played well. He threw for 271 and 2. He's a great quarterback. This is going to be his first real game that he has coming back from injury. He was out for most of the season last year. So he will have a test ahead. The other good players that they have is Devin Neal is probably their other really good player, is their running back that they have. He's a Kansas product. He's a really great running back that they have here, and he can really open up the game. But Kansas overall is a great running team. They're really going to try to run the ball on Illinois and establish that early. Some of the other offensive players that they have is Luke Grimm. He had 111 receiving yards in their last games. He's their receiver as well. Yeah, Lawrence Arnold was their last receiver that they had, who had 89 yards on 5 catches against Lindenwood. So overall, they're a high-powered offense with good quarterback play, and they really try to run the ball a lot. So Jalen Daniels, I feel like he's going to be the main focus for Illinois. We'll see how we do against this game. I think this would be a huge win for the program. These are types of games that Illinois at home needs to start competing at and win. I can't think of too many marquee wins that we have had in my 4 years being here at Illinois. None that are coming to my mind right away. So I think this would be a great win for the program. This would be a wake-up call to the Big Ten and say, hey, we're Illinois football. So this would be a crazy win if we get it out. I think it's almost a sold-out game right now. So I think the stadium is going to be rocking. It's going to be an exciting and a lot of energy. I thought something that was interesting is that the head coach, Lance Leopold, I believe he was rumored to be the other coach that was in the running for the Illinois opening. So him and Brett. So kind of interesting. I think he's a really good coach and has been able to establish some type of culture here at Kansas. I know that they have a new offensive coordinator, I believe, because their previous offensive coordinator went to Penn State. But I think it's an interesting program to see Kansas kind of becoming this better football team. Especially traditionally, Kansas is not a football powerhouse, but I think it's going to be an exciting game. I hope that we kind of came out slow against Eastern, letting them drive on us a lot. And I think that's what happened last game, too, last time we played Kansas, where they just kind of jumped on top of us right away, and it was tough to get away from it. I know that Daniels kind of made us look silly. He had that play against Johnny Newton where he juked him out. So I hope we can come out fast and strong and kind of try to establish something here. I think that's something that we normally don't do. But yeah, Pat, you want to get in?
It's pretty lame that Kansas can be good at football and basketball, and Illinois could be pretty okay at both of them. I feel like you got to pick a lane. I'm excited for the game. I think, like you said, this would be a massive win for the program. I think a lot of us are expecting to have kind of an ugly game going in, but, I guess after reading and researching the Illinois team, you can feel great about your whole roster when you're like, oh, wow, we have all these amazing players. These all sound super good. And then you play a team like Kansas, and we might get shown up. But excited to see how we respond, how Altmaier responds to some pressure, some actual defense, how our receivers can match up against pretty serious DBs, and how our defense can hold down against this dynamic quarterback. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. I think overall where I'm at, expectations not super high. 5.5 point home dog is tough to see. But 55.5 points overall, that's at least will be a high scoring or, maybe an exciting kind of game. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully, maybe Memorial. It's a tough place to play on the road. Maybe it'll be rocking. So maybe they'll get thrown off their feet a little, punch them in the mouth, and maybe we can get out. So I'm not going to say rush to FanDuel, put your bets in, but let's just see how the game plays out.
So maybe next episode we will do a quick recap of how the game went and if our predictions were accurate or if we were pleasantly surprised by how we performed. But that'll do it for today's episode of the Chicagolandians. Appreciate everyone listening to the end for this episode where we recapped the Illinois football victory against Eastern Illinois and then previewed our upcoming game against Kansas. I want to thank Connor for recording this episode. This will actually be episode 20. So we are 20 episodes in to this endeavor, which I don't think most podcasts get to. So I think it's something to be proud of. Thank you as always for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, why not follow us on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts, or you can find us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at the Chicagolandians everywhere. And make sure to leave us a review. But as always, we like to end this by saying bear down.
Bear down, baby.